that we're not trying to have American boots all over the globe. Where we can do counterterrorism effectively over the horizon, that's the preference. Right now, the biggest threat was securing our own border, which we are addressing rapidly. We've been defending other people's borders for a long time. Time to defend ours. Well, I think it's a reflection of the importance of that command as well as UCOM. We spent this morning at UCOM as well. It made sense to come to both if we're here in Germany. But it's also a reflection that, you know, the PRC's intentions are pernicious, not just in their part of the world, but also in South America and on the African continent. And America's posture there, along with allies and partners, is going to matter about contesting that space. So it certainly remains a priority. You saw the strike in Somalia on February 1st. That, as we talk to the command, that's a reflection also of pushing decision authority down, untying the hands of warfighters who, in the previous administration, made multiple requests and were often denied for that kind of kinetic action, or the decision had to be made at the White House when it should be made at the 4-star level or at the Secretary of Defense level more quickly, based on the ability to degrade the enemy. So this is a very important part of the world for us. The president feels that way as well, and we're honored to be here.
Mr. Secretary, are you planning to cut the number of American forces in Europe, shift to the Pacific, and focus on China?
There are no plans right now in the making to cut anything. There is a understanding that we're going to review force posture across the world, right? President Trump's planning assumptions are different in many ways, or at least strategic assumptions, than Joe Biden's were. We certainly don't want to plan on the back of the withdrawal from Afghanistan and what happened on October 7th and the war that was unleashed in Ukraine. You have to manage and mitigate those things by coming alongside your friends in Israel, ensuring their defense and peacefully resolving the conflict in Ukraine. But those shouldn't define how we orient. And with hopefully a rapid peace deal in Ukraine, which the president is committed to delivering, we can then review force posture and encourage, as you're going to see tomorrow in Ukraine at the Ukraine Contact Group and the NATO Ministerial, we're going to have straight talk with our friends. This kind of urgency of this moment requires friends talking to friends about capabilities, about leadership, about stepping up, about burden sharing, and the incentives to say the European continent deserves to be free from any aggression, but it ought be those in the neighborhood investing the most in that collective, individual and collective defense. That's common sense, as the president talks a lot about. Common sense is you defend your neighborhood and the Americans will come alongside you in helping in that defense. If and when that happens, and I believe it will, because of President Trump, most NATO countries are already close to 2%. We believe that needs to be higher. The president has said 5%. I think he's right. That's a reflection of a need to invest on the continent. If and when that happens through investments in defense industrial base as well, then yes, America, as the leader of the free world, defending American interests, is going to need to make sure we're focused properly on the communist Chinese and their ambitions in the Indo-Pacific and, as I mentioned before, around the world. So we would be remiss in not reviewing force posture everywhere, but it would be the wrong planning assumption to say, oh, America's abandoning something or America's leaving. No, America's smart to observe, plan, prioritize, and project power where we need to deter conflict. We don't want conflict with China. We don't want the president has ran on being a peace president, and he's delivered that. But being strong, peace through strength, is how you deter that. And we want to posture for that, just like we believe the Europeans, alongside our support, need to on the continent as well.
Is China the biggest threat to the United States?
Well, right now, the biggest threat was securing our own border, which we are addressing rapidly. And I'm proud of what NORTHCOM has done and the Defense Department has done, is shifting there. You don't have a country if you don't have borders, as the president has pointed out. And we've been defending other people's borders for a long time. Time to defend ours. So we're sealing that border. We're continuing to doing that. But as far as external threats, there's just no doubt the Communist Chinese ambitions are robust. Their view of the world is quite different than ours. And whoever carries that mantle is going to set the tone for the 21st century. I mean, anybody of my generation that served in Iraq and Afghanistan or been a part of post 9/11 understands the threat of global jihad, especially the desire to export that against our allies in Europe or Israel or certainly the United States of America. So the counterterrorism threat focused on those who would seek to do us harm is of the highest priority, which is why you saw what AFRICOM did so well in that strike in Somalia. Where we see those growing, plotting, or planning with increased capabilities, we will strike. And that pertains to Islamist organizations all across the continent. But we have to work with partners and allies. I mean, foreign internal defense and security force assistance. I was with Green Berets this morning. You know, we think of Green Berets in the context of post 9/11, right? Kicking down doors, and they're really good at that. But what they're best at is doing security force assistance and foreign internal defense, where they work with local security forces to build up their capabilities so that it's indigenous forces fighting Islamists because they want to secure their country as well. And AFRICOM is very directly committed to doing that. That's a mission very much worth resourcing. And Africa is very much the front lines of a fight from Islamists. You've got Christian populations that are under siege in Africa and have been ignored for far too long. And American interests there, it matters a great deal. And Islamists, we're not going to allow them to maintain a foothold, especially to try to strike at America. We're not trying to have American boots all over the globe. Where we can do counterterrorism effectively over the horizon, that's the preference. But we'll review the force posture there with the generals doing the heavy lifting and take it into consideration, no doubt. But thankfully, we had the intelligence capabilities to do the kind of strike that we saw, and we believe we can do more of that.